Riff Energy.
Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. This is episode 61. It is Tuesday, May 7th. It's been a very productive and busy week. If you haven't seen it yet, this past week I did my two favorite episodes I've ever done. I talked to Outer Heaven in downtown Austin the day after their Austin Death Fest performance, and what a chaotic, awesome, fun interview that was. We talked about all kinds of life-altering encounters with UFOs and cryptids in the spirit realm and alternate dimensions, and how those experiences help us write riffs. And then I woke up at 3:30 in the morning for some reason to interview Nocturno Culto, Ted from Dark Throne. And that is definitely my favorite episode of this podcast to date. Check those out. Came out last week. Ted came out on Friday. And those conversations were so good that I have been overflowing with riffs since then. I've been demoing a lot of stuff. I've been writing a lot of stuff, all kinds of different tunings and styles. And it's exciting, man. So check out the Outer Heaven episode and check out the Nocturno Culto episode if you have not. Playing some catch up here. Like I said, it's been very busy. I have album rollout stuff picking up. I have the riffs picking up. Ted put a bunch of riffs in me. Not in that kind of way, but, you know, just that conversation was so good and so inspiring. And to be connected with a dude that has pumped out so many killer riffs over the last 35, 36 years. Very inspiring. So yeah, like I said, playing some catch up. If you have contacted me with questions or whatever, guitar lesson inquiries, I promise I will get back to you probably this week. So just hang in there. Today we're going to be digging into the vault of super crazy out there stories. Had a fan question about smoking weed and trying to stop smoking weed, and instead of just doing the typical motivational speaker shit, I think I'm going to tell a story on that subject that's pretty out there. But first, I want to talk about an album. The highlight of Austin Death. Well, let's talk about Austin Death Fest for a second. A hugely successful festival, at least from a fan's perspective. I was there lending some amplifiers for the out-of-town bands, but really just wanted to experience it as a fan, you know. And it was killer. The weather on Sunday got a little weird, but it didn't really affect the show. In fact, the record I'm going to talk about, Maze Envy by Civerous, I would say they are the highlight of the fest for me. And the weather was actually kind of sweet because when they were playing, it was getting really intense and it started sprinkling for a second right during like a super atmospheric, psyched out part of their set. So it was kind of perfect, man. It was a very powerful experience. But yeah, it was Saturday and Sunday and tons of great bands. Outer Heaven delivered, of course. Mortiferum was great. Who else? Sunday, one of the surprising sets for me was Phobophilic. I'm not super familiar with that band, and they have a lot of Slayer riffs, and I like Slayer riffs, so that was a nice surprise. But yeah, Civerous, I would say, was the standout of the entire fest for me. We actually wrapped up the Outer Heaven interview specifically to make it back over in time to see this band. I'm going to have to stop listening to advanced singles, I think, because it's happened to me several times this year. I think it happened to me with Coffin Storm, Necrot, and also the Civerous album, where I hear the advanced single, and maybe because I'm not immersing myself into a full album listening experience, I'm kind of casually listening to it, maybe on crappy earbuds or on my phone speakers or on the laptop or YouTube on the TV or something. And it's just not it's not the right way to get a first impression of a record for me. I don't think that I'm going to listen to advanced singles anymore, because in all of those instances, I was a little bit not sold on the record which is insane because I hadn't heard the record. I'd only heard an advanced single. But I saw the Civerous hype building up, watched a video, and I thought it was okay, but I just wasn't blown away. And then I saw the Melon, biggest douchebag on the internet, gave it a 9 out of 10, which actually made me less interested. But, what do they say? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So I think that's the situation. But I just wanted to wait and see them live and see how I felt about it. And I was blown away, man. The vibe of the band was the first thing that struck me. It's like a very unique vibe on stage. Just kind of a cool mix of people and a cool mix of energies. I expected something a little more, reserved or something from the front man. And much to my excitement, this dude is just like an old school metal frontman. He was very energetic and just metal, like unapologetically metal, not trying to be like smart or mysterious or anything. There was some cool energy. There was some cool intensity, on maybe like a psychedelic or like spiritual level or something like that. But combined with that was just the over the top, like exuberance and aggression of a classic old school metal frontman. So that made me very happy. Lots of great atmosphere. They have a ton of parts where it's super heavy. They're on 7 strings, so like super heavy, low tuned, brutal, distorted guitar, but then also like the chimey, jazz chorusy, reverb, delayed out, like clean guitar, picking out some single notes at the same time. A classic Death Doom sort of approach, which I love. I love super heavy guitars and clean guitars at the same time. Lots of weird, unexpected shifts in their songs. Strange parts where it's just like guitar tremolo picking like a mantra almost, and the drums just going ham. And then they come back in and it doesn't make sense while they're doing it, but when they go into the next part, it makes sense. Just stuff that captivates your attention, but then also just really brutal, heavy parts. And, the record gives me the vibe of post-metal here and there, atmospheric, psychedelic ambient sort of. I was finding myself transported back to when I heard Neurosis for the first time, because the first Neurosis albums I heard were Eye of Every Storm, Sun That Never Sets, and Times of Grace. And then I think I heard Through Silver and Blood. And so those were kind of my favorites growing up, that little run right there, the Sovereign EP. And the Civerous album definitely takes me back to that. Lots of chimey, delayed out, clean guitars and ambient synth soundscapes and weird avant-garde violin parts that sound like they would be in an A24 horror movie score. So I see why the Melon liked it. I feel like we are oversaturated with death metal right now, all forms of death metal, hardcore infused death metal, cavernous funeral death doom, death metal bordering on war metal. Like every single approach to death metal is oversaturated right now. So I think it takes a monumental effort and some really crazy ideas to do something that is interesting and that sounds a little bit different. And even some of the tried and true approaches to making super interesting, weird death metal are oversaturated right now. These guys figured out a way to make songs and make a record and make a sound that sets them apart. Some of this stuff even reminds me a little bit of like transcendental black metal or, girlfriend black metal. Like, what's that band from France? Alcest. Like, I'm hearing a little bit of that. I would dare even say like I get a little bit of old Death Heaven in there. I would be shocked if there's not at least one Death Heaven fan in the band. So yeah, it's a great record, and it's so good that I like it, and I would give it a really high rating despite the fact that it contains a couple of things that are usually complete disqualifiers for me, and I have to talk about it, and I don't want to come across as condescending or rude or anything like that, but I know there's people that listen to this podcast that are making records and trying to make records and trying to learn how to record and stuff like that. So there's a couple things on this record I just have to mention that are criticisms. But like I said, usually these things will make me just turn a record off and never think about it again. This one's so good that for the first time in history, I'm forcing myself to ignore these things. But the first thing that I noticed, and it's especially where it's just clean guitar, there's a lot of sections of this record that are just clean guitar and maybe like violin or some keyboards or something in the background. We have digital distortion and digital clipping. If you want to really know what digital clipping is, if you're trying to make records and avoiding, monumental mistakes and things that detract from your record, just Google like digital clipping. I think the first article that comes up explains exactly what it is, but your input signal is too high going into whatever digital audio workstation you're using. So that's either Logic or Pro Tools or whatever you're using to record your album, mix your album. It's almost exclusively software at this point, even studios with big $150,000 analog Neve boards or SSL boards or whatever. At the end of the day, it's in and up in Pro Tools regardless. But a huge issue that's plaguing modern records is that someone is neglecting to double, triple, quadruple check stuff. And it's really prevalent with clean guitars. And I know this because I've run into this issue myself in the past recording demos here. The last record I made has a lot of parts where it's distorted guitars and clean guitars at the same time. And in sections where you have really loud guitars and the full band is playing and you want the overdubbed clean guitars to cut through, you have to mix them a certain way, you have to compress them a certain way. But then what happens is when you take everything else away and it's just clean guitar, if your mix is the same, you're going to be hearing all kinds of fucked up digital clipping, which the only way I know how to describe that is like the most offensive, unappealing sound in the world. It's not like clipping a tube amp or clipping a tube compressor. That's kind of a warm, pleasant sound that a lot of people strive for, analog distortion on a tube compressor. That people love that sound. Digital clipping is just like, it's a mistake. It's a mistake. And another problem that it can create is when you're punching in. So let's say you have a clean guitar interlude that's a minute long, right? And you have all these plugins on your guitar and you have all these effects on your guitar and your guitar is running like really hot. It's a clean guitar, but in order for the volume to be loud enough, you're running it like really hot, right? You have all this delay and all this other shit, and you're playing this minute long section and you get to the 45-second mark and you make a mistake. So instead of playing the whole entire thing again, of course, you're going to just punch in and fix that mistake at the 45-second mark. But what you have to do is back way up and play into it. If you have all those effects and all that shit on your guitar and your level's that hot, if you just punch in right there, that's going to be on the record. You're going to hear it sucks. It'll take you right out of especially like a atmospheric, psyched out, clean section. It'll just pull you right out of that. So what you have to do is this is nerd talk. Sorry, if you're not interested in making records or whatever, just skip ahead to the weed psychosis part or whatever. But you have to like play into the part and then take the 2 takes and crossfade them. Your other option, which I do a lot when I'm working on demos because I don't want to do all that shit, is just play it over and over and over until you get the entire minute take perfect. from start to finish. That takes a lot more work. It's a pain in the ass, but a lot of times it's worth it. I would compare, this digital clipping thing. It's a lot of, I don't think this is the band's fault, although I feel like somebody should have caught this stuff when they were listening to mixes. Maybe they ran out of time, whatever. That happens where you're down to the wire and like the studio's got another session booked and you hear something and you're like, shit, but it's not quite a deal breaker and it's too late to fix it. Whatever. That happens. This isn't really on the band. I would say it's on whoever recorded it. But I would liken this to watching like a really brilliant film, like an Oscar-worthy film, a Christopher Nolan movie or like a Robert Eggers movie. Let's say like you're watching The Witch by Robert Eggers and you are in that time period, the Pilgrims, you're like in the woods and you are totally like absorbed into the setting of this movie and the vibe of this movie, and you're checked out from real life. You forgot you're watching a movie, right? And then there's like this long monologue that's like really drawing you in, and you look in the background and there's a dude holding like a boom mic wearing clothes from the modern day, and you're like, what the fuck is that guy doing in there? And he's only in there for a second, but how are you gonna like how are you gonna be able to stay present in that scene when something like that happens? So I guess what I'm saying is it's really not a matter of taste. It's just a mistake, and it's unfortunate. I love this record. I love this record, and the reason I wanted to talk about this is because, again, I know people are listening to this trying to make records, trying to learn about making records. I know this because I talk to a lot of y'all on the weekends, been helping a lot of people with these kind of issues. So please read that article on digital clipping and setting your input gain correctly. Another issue is that so many modern engineers rely on plugins for compression instead of like outboard tube gear and that sort of stuff for compression. There's one, I think it's a compressor and or plugin that adds distortion to stuff, like quote unquote desirable distortion to stuff. The Decapitator, y'all got to stop using that, dude. Everybody uses that thing. And shit, my favorite Hooded Menace album, Ossuarium Silhouettes Unhallowed, there's parts on that record where you can tell that they put something on the distorted guitars to make them even more distorted or compressed, and it's the most unpleasant sound that you can possibly have on a record. It's not cool. It's not shitty in a cool way. Me and Ted from Dark Throne talked about happy accidents and the human element of performances and making mixes that you're not striving for pristine sound quality. You're striving for a vibe. This is not that. This is the opposite of a vibe. But harping too much on this, Civerous Maze Envy is a great record. To me, it's one of the more interesting and captivating death metal records I've heard in a while. I would put it up there with that last Cruciamentum album. It's great. It's great. So if y'all are making records, and to whoever recorded the clean guitars on the Civerous record, please read articles about avoiding digital clipping, because that's unacceptable for a record that is this fucking good. And the Melon just happened to be right about it. Anyway, I love Civerous. They put on a hell of a live show. Great band, great songs. Overall, awesome record. It's so awesome, I'm willing to overlook things that would usually disqualify me from even listening to a record. So that's how good it is. We'll go to some fan questions here. I want to shout out Brody for supporting the channel. Man, a lot of you guys are sending me PayPals and not asking me anything. I feel weird about that, but thank you. And I'm backed up on the questions a little bit. So if you want your question moved to the front of the line, you have the option of PayPaling me $10. The link is in the description of the podcast, and your question will move to the front of the line. This one's just funny. Wayne said, "Hey mate, I heard you didn't get the Pumpkins gig. Don't be too down on yourself. You'll survive." Man, let's take a look. Who beat me for the Pumpkins gig? Somebody named Kiki. Take a look at her here. Well, I don't know how I was going to compete with that. And, yeah, I'm sure that she got the gig just solely based on her guitar playing alone. But, no, all jokes aside, I'm not familiar with Kiki, but I could almost guarantee she's a better guitar player than me. And that's the only reason that she got the gig. Okay. Benoit from Canada. Here we go. Dude, Benoit, your question got cut off at the end. So if there's something that I'm missing, just hit me back up and I'll try to cover it. Hey man, I'm a big fan of all your work and really enjoy your podcast. I'm super excited and stoked about your new project and can't wait to see and hear it. I'll get right to the point. I've been a wake and bake smoke all day stoner for about 20 years. It got really bad during the pandemic while I was working from home, and I've been wrestling with the idea of quitting for about a year now. I've tried and failed a few times. I can never get beyond a couple days. I just got back from a trip to Greece. I was there for a week and didn't smoke at all. This is the first time in at least 5 years I went 7 days without smoking and feeling good about it. I want to keep it going and feel determined to keep it up at least for a few months to see how that feels. I live a healthy life outside of weed. I exercise and meditate regularly. I read a lot. I write, and I've recently started drawing. My goal is to focus on those to help me through. However, I have two major concerns. The first is that I live in Canada, where weed and then your thing gets cut off. So, I mean, the typical response from me would be all about bad habits and how to break bad habits and form good habits, and not using anything, not using any substance or shit like that as a crutch to get through your day. That's bad, blah blah blah. Share my experience with addiction and all that. But to make this more entertaining and more fun, the Outer Heaven episode, we were talking about some crazy shit. We were talking about seeing UFOs for real and seeing Bigfoot and cryptids and all kinds of stuff. So I want to tell a story instead that's, I guess now it's fun. It wasn't then, but it was as big a mind opener as seeing a UFO. And then I'll give you some legitimate advice or thoughts on that. But I want to talk about the first time I smoked weed. So Bartlesville, Oklahoma. I'm probably 16 years old, I would imagine. And I've been drinking for a little while at this point. Not really fooling around with anything else, I just like to drink and listen to music with the boys and go out and whatever, do Oklahoma shit. And I was at a party at my friend Brad's house, and I think his parents were out of town, and there was quite a few people over there. And I've been watching the Pantera home videos forever, and they smoke a lot of weed in those, obviously. But I hadn't really been that interested in it up to this point. And we honestly, being, sort of southern borderline, whatever, wannabe rednecks, we sort of had like a weird arbitrary division between alcohol and everything else. We thought it was like perfectly okay to drink alcohol, but that every other drug, especially weed, was for like dirty fucking worthless hippies, But I was going through a breakup or something at the time. I was feeling some kind of way, and yeah, I saw Pantera drinking whiskey and shit in the home videos, and that looked cool. And they were smoking weed, and like Dimebag made the big paper mache weed leaf, and they were shooting off fireworks and stuff. So I was like, okay, that's probably cool too then, huh? I remember being on the back patio, and this dude had a toilet paper roll with like some tin foil or something. And I was like, hey, let me get some of that. And some of my friends got pissed because they were like, oh, you're crossing over to the dirty hippie side. And I was like, whatever. So he kind of showed me how to do it. I do it. Nothing really happens at first. And I remember going in the bathroom, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I get this sudden, complete, transcendental, like out of body level euphoria, which, come to find out, I mean, that's kind of what I got the first time I drank alcohol too. And I guess that's not normal to have that extreme of a reaction, right? But the first thing that happened was that out every single thing that was bothering me with this girl and with my friends being pissed off at me, and it just like disintegrated. And I literally felt like I was walking on a cloud. I felt like I was invincible. I felt the only feelings that I felt were positive, and there was no negative feelings whatsoever. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, oh man, I get why people do this now. And I even had the conscious thought of like, if this is what this feels like, I am smoking weed every day, starting today until the day I die. It was that good. I mean, it just like fixed everything. And I walked out of the bathroom. I ran into a couple friends who were people that had been smoking for a while, so they weren't judgmental or whatever. And we were just like giggling and, you know, the classic shit. At some point, I'm in the entryway to my buddy's house, and there's like a room right there to the left. Like if your back is to the front door, there's a room to the left. There's a bunch of people sitting in there on a couch. And then there's like 2 or 3 people milling around like in the entryway. And I have like a Budweiser bottle in my hand, and I look and it's empty. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get another beer out of the fridge. So I go in the kitchen, I open the refrigerator. There's some Budweiser bottles in there. I reach in, I grab one. I'm pretty sure I opened it. I walk back through the house from the kitchen back to the entryway, back to the spot where I was standing before. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm standing there with an empty beer in my hand. And I'm like, how the fuck did that happen? Kind of weird. Okay, so I do the whole thing again. I have the thought like, oh, let me go get another beer. I walk back to the kitchen. I get to the fridge. I open the fridge. I reach in to grab the beer, and then I flash and I'm back where I was standing originally in the entryway. And now I'm like, well, that's really weird. And then I do it again, but this time I don't quite get as far as I did on my last journey to the Budweiser. And then I do it again, and it gets to the point where my hand isn't quite reaching and touching the refrigerator handle. And then I do it again, and I'm not quite getting all the way through the kitchen. And the time loop gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And it happened, this probably happened in 1 second inside of my mind. Unless I really was actually breaking out of the matrix or something temporarily. But it got to the point where I would move a foot to go towards the kitchen, and I would be back where I started. And then I would move 6 inches, and then it was an inch, and then it was like I could feel myself moving just the width of an atom, and then it just glitched out harder and harder and harder and shorter until the measurements of time were so short that it was like only perceivable on some like quantum level, you know? And I remember at some point somebody that was sitting right there in that front room was like, dude, are you okay? And after that, it was like a total, complete, utter meltdown. And eventually when I sort of returned to reality, I was now like coherent, but for the rest of the night, it was like all kinds of sensations that are completely outside of our 5 senses, you know, all sorts of weird understandings about the universe and space and time and all of that bullshit. And it went on and on and on and on. And I remember when I got home, I wrote myself a note because I knew you could like lose your memory of the night before from alcohol, but I didn't know what was going to happen with this. So I wrote myself a note that like basically told me what was going on. Don't fucking do that again. And, you know, for the rest of the night, I don't know if anybody's seen Donnie Darko, but when he's walking around and he has like the quantum like pathway coming out of his chest and it's like showing him where to go. I was experiencing all sorts of stuff like that coming out of like the bones in my palms, my cheekbones, my sternum. and I felt like an X-Man or something. Like Havoc. I was getting like circular rays like coming out of all these different pressure points on my body. There was shit like that happening all night long. Now I was thinking about this story the other day because I wanted to make this like how do I quit smoking weed thing a little more interesting and entertaining. So I was really diving back into this experience. I don't like to think about it that much. Obviously, it was terrifying. But here's the things that make it really funny. I mean, I think now it's like funny on its own. But what I remembered is that the next day, I had to go to Chili's in the morning to meet up with a church youth group, like rock band. I think I've mentioned this before, but I was like, when I was 16, I was moonlighting for a while as the drummer of like a youth group rock band. And I was already deep into satanic death metal and black metal. And I completely disavowed like I never really bought into the Christianity thing. But by this point I had completely, disavowed it like wholeheartedly. But there was this dude that looked like Bono who somehow got a hold of me and like needed a drummer. And his deal was if I would play these little festival shows and little shit with this band, he gave me a key to the church basement where there was a drum kit. And I would go down there and learn like Pantera songs and Slayer songs and Metallica songs in the basement of this church. But we had like a like a band meeting at Chili's the day after my attempt to like break out of the simulation. And all I can remember is I'm in my car driving to Chili's and I'm like, am I real? Did I die? And this is like an alternate life? Did I break into another universe? Like, am I dreaming? And I had to go into Chili's and like sit down with these little Christian kids and this dude that looked like Bono, who was like the youth group music director or whatever, and like sit there and pretend like I'm not having like the biggest existential crisis of my entire life while we're talking about playing like Sunfest in Sooner Park of Bartlesville, Oklahoma. The other thing that makes this really funny, and I don't want to make light of this because this dude's my friend or whatever, and it's kind of a jacked up situation, but I was thinking about it and I was like, man, nobody else responded to it the way I did, but I'm still kind of like, was there something else in there? Because the dude who had the weed, he ended up not that long ago making a bunch of pipe bombs and putting them on a walking path in Bartlesville, Oklahoma to blow some people up. Dude, you can't make this up. You cannot make this up. I was telling my wife all the little caveats to this story and she was like, dude, only you. So yeah, the guy that gave me the weed for the first time ended up building bombs to try to commit a couple of acts of terrorism or whatever. And dude, somehow, I was just looking at the news article about it. Somehow he only got probation. Thank God. He's not a bad dude. I think he had some issues, but that was my experience with weed. So I'm not really a weed guy. What makes it crazy though is I like in the future following that event, I tried to get back into it because I would see what it would do for other people. And I was like, man, it seems like it helps people or whatever. But every time I did it, I had some sort of experience that was on that like cosmic scale of insanity. So if you ever smoked weed with me, just know what a psycho I am, because that's what I was up against, and I was doing it anyway. It was just absolute nonsense. So weed was never a thing for me. I don't like it, clearly. It's just a little too much to handle. But yeah, bad habits I understand, addiction I understand. You mentioned having things that you're into, so just do that. A bad habit or just a habit, whatever, let's not even make a judgment on it. A habit is literally like wiring between neurons in your brain, and I think that's why nowadays there's some scientific evidence, it seems that part of the reason that certain things like psilocybin or MDMA or stuff like that can help you break addictions is that they will literally open up new neural pathways for you to form new habits. But there's all kinds of ways of doing that. The way that I found most effective was just taking action. You know, one of my favorite phrases is you can act yourself into correct thinking, but you can't think yourself into correct action. That has never worked for me. Sitting around thinking like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to get motivated, I'm going to whatever. It doesn't work. What works is like doing something and then doing it again and doing it again. When I quit drinking, I started running every day. I was listening to Bolt Thrower, The Fourth Crusade, and Morbus Crohn, Weave In. Every day. I was writing riffs every day. When you have the addictive thing, when you have that gene or whatever it is, I feel like you're not ever going to turn it off and you're not ever going to get it to fully go away. But what you can, and this is my opinion, I'm not an expert. And in fact, my first piece of advice would be to consult an expert, because I'm not one at all. I don't know shit. I'm some guy on the internet talking about riffs, and I'm not a fucking life coach, and I'm no one to listen to for any important decisions whatsoever. But you did ask. So I don't think you can turn off the addiction gene, but I think you can direct it somewhere else. And if you look at what I was doing from 2015 to 2020, you will see that I did not turn off the addiction gene. I just directed it into riffs and into recording and into touring. And I was running a lot and I was exercising a lot. These are things that there is like scientific evidence that this will help you. Exercise creates a lot of the same neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin and shit like that. Sunlight does that. You can replace the chemical dependency with stuff that you can acquire naturally, because the weed shit, like if you're smoking all day every day, you are like, you're going for this chemical balance that you have like ruined your natural ability to create that chemical balance just independently. So there's not really an easy way to do it, because you're going to pay the fucking piper, whether it's going to be like a week or 2 weeks or a month or 6 months of just like, I don't know if I would call it withdrawals with weed. You know, people, part of the problem, you were about to say, I think that part of your issue is that you're in Canada where it's like legal and recreational. I think it is. I don't know that for sure, but it seems like that's where you were going. But dude, I quit alcohol and it's literally everywhere and they advertise it on TV. So that's, you just can't even let that factor in. I'm pretty sure you can get like cyanide too. You can get, you could buy a bottle of aspirin anywhere and take the whole thing and fuck you up, you know? So just because something is readily available, doesn't mean that it's good for you. And you know, my whole experience with it, there's a lot of evidence coming out now that people, with maybe like a genetic predisposition towards mental illness, schizophrenia, stuff like that, that weed can actually trigger psychosis in people in a high enough dose. So in typical fashion, it's like society was way too far on one side of this issue with the war on drugs and DARE and all that shit. And I feel like with weed especially, we swung way back too far the other way, where these fucking ding dongs would be like, act like that it'll do anything for you. Weed cures cancer. Oh man, I had a fucking pothead tell me during COVID, they're saying that if you smoke weed, that COVID has a harder time infecting you. And I laughed in his face because I thought he was fucking kidding. And he's like, no, it clogs up your lungs and COVID gets in through absorption through your lungs. So holy shit, dude. Okay. Yeah. So, I think it would be harder to quit something that a large portion of society is telling you is like a cure-all for every ailment that a human being can encounter. When in fact, most of the people that I witness that are getting into their 30s, 40s, and are smoking weed all day, every day like you were, it's not a good look, man. And I'm not a prude. Like, if you can do it and not annoy the living shit out of every other person in your life, and you're so high you don't even know you're annoying the living fucking shit out of every single person in your life, if you can do it and kick ass, go ahead. But man, I don't know, dude. Just fucking stop doing it. Do other shit. There's plenty of podcasts about breaking bad habits and breaking addictions and stuff like that. Weed's a weird one too, man, because all these other drugs, like when you're abusing the shit out of them and they're taking over your life, they kill you, and it's like real ugly and it's real nasty, and there's like obvious physical consequences that are fucking brutal, like alcohol especially. But you see these fools on K&A in Philadelphia with their arms are falling off and you can see their leg bones sticking out and shit like that. Those are obvious negative consequences of the drugs that they're doing. But I think weed is actually kind of more insidious for those who actually like struggle with like a parasitic relationship with the thing, because the negative consequences aren't as obvious, and all these fucking burnout hippies are constantly preaching about how great it is. And I could talk about this in the lane of this show too, which is Big Riff Energy. A lot of the reason that these fucking stoner metal bands don't have any riffs is because, man, everything's better when you're high. Like, music's better. So that means the riff that you wrote when you were fucking baked out of your mind actually sucks. Like, anybody that hears it that's not like coma stoned on your level, it's not as good to them. So, you know, these fools that talk about writing music fucked up and this and that, I don't know. I subscribe to the Buzz Osborne thing. And who are you going to listen to when talking about writing riffs? Jack Mehoff that wrote the fucking Stoned Witch Bomb Brigade or whatever, or Buzz Osborne who said that those substances just sort of mask how shitty your riff and your song is. And that in order to really know if you've got a good riff or a good song, you need to be coherent to hear it. So that's how it relates to my world. I don't know. Speaking personally, I had myself convinced that all my creativity was coming out of substances and shit like that. And in fact, the opposite was true. And all of that like brainwashing that I was doing to myself about all the benefits of the creative benefits and all that shit, that was addiction lying to me. So I don't know if you're that bad off with the weed or whatever, but you're bad enough that you're writing a dude on the internet asking him how to quit, or asking him for advice on quitting, or however you want to put it. And you mentioned something about like, I'm thinking about taking a few months off or whatever. My advice would be, if you've gotten to the point that you want to take a few months off from this, just don't do it anymore. It's very unlikely that you're going to take a few months off and then go back to doing it again. And on a long enough timeline, you're going to have a completely different relationship with it, where you don't end up in the exact position where you're feeling like how you're feeling today. So I don't know. I hope that helps. Listen to riffs. You might have to feel bad for a while. And it seems like the society we're in today, people think that you shouldn't have to feel bad for 1 second of your life. And that's bullshit. You're going to have to feel bad. You're going to have to pay the piper one way or another. You can do it now, or you can do it 20 years from now when you're old as shit and half fucking brain dead and annoying the shit out of everybody in your life. All right, man. I'll get back to y'all about the guitar lessons and all that shit. Write me bigriffenergy@gmail.com. And that's it. See you next week.
Riff.